Pocket Hours is brought to you by Scout Real Estate. At Scout, we're doing things differently with our focus on legendary service and creating a community of producing agents to spur each other on to do higher quality work while keeping the clients at the center. Come see how it feels to work with a small group of committed brokers with the shared goal of upping their game. For more info, please contact Jennifer Nelson, founder and owner of Scout, 206-227-7966, or jennifer@scoutrealestate.com. Hello, folks. Jennifer Nelson here with Pocket Hours. Thanks for coming to the show. I'm excited to tell you today that we have the really great team of Meister Stewart partners on the show today. I have known Kelley Meister and Amie Stewart for years now. We were trying to figure it out on the show, but we couldn't quite come to it. But it's been a lot of years, and they are a very dynamite duo that is in the top 0.5% of production for Washington State, and have a lot to say that's worth listening to. I'm super excited to have you here from Meister Stewart today. I am so excited today to be bringing on this fantastic team of folks that I've known for years now. I don't even remember how long. We've known each other forever, it feels like.
Long time.
We go way back, yeah. So Meister Stewart partners, Kelley Meister and Amie Stewart, have been a team for a while. You're going to hear more about that in a minute. But first of all, just thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Cool. So let's see. We go back to when, this is what I know a little bit about, but I wanted to start with the first questions of, how did you get in real estate? What were you doing before real estate? I know a little bit about Kelley. You were at some restaurant on Capitol Hill. Mm-hmm. That's what I remember. Tell us about that.
I had been in the restaurant industry for about 25 years before real estate. And I was managing a restaurant on Capitol Hill called Machiavelli, which was and is still quite the institution on Capitol Hill. It was kind of time for me to make a shift out, and the real estate bug sort of hit me when I was purchasing my second house, because my first house purchase I actually bought directly from my landlord at the time. And I was buying my second house, and I just recalled feeling like I could do this so much better than you.
Yep, fair, totally.
Coming from a customer service background, and also I had an associate's degree in paralegalism, so contracts always interested me. Mm. So it was that combo of customer service and contract side and negotiating that attracted me, got me the bug. And so that was that.
How long ago was that?
That was about 2004, whenever the bug hit. And then I think I was licensed in 2005.
Yeah. And I was doing very similar. I worked in a bunch of restaurants. I moved to Seattle after college and kind of wasn't sure what I was going to be doing. And I found myself doing some production work. Like I did a lot of makeup and hair for commercials and print ads and film, some B-roll film here. And Kelley and I met when I was working for a makeup company at Nordstrom called the Mac Counter. And then I ended up working with her at Machiavelli for several years. And also about that same time, my husband and I bought a house in 2004, and we bought it without an agent. We bought it through a family member and kind of started to think about a career change at that point as well. I'd been thinking about real estate for several years and just didn't have the guts to go after it. But I really liked the idea of being self-employed and all of the promise that that brings and the challenge, and using a different part of my brain that had been quiet since college. So I got my license about the same time. I think we decided it completely independent of one another. And I went into new development and condo sales for a few years. And then we joined forces in about 2011 after my second kid was born. I forget what one of the first questions was, but I really feel like that us joining forces is what helped our business the most. We found that our differences helped one another, and we had a lot of shared values, and we knew from working together in the past that we would make a good fit. And it was kind of joining forces and learning how to leverage and learning that each of us could bring something different to the table that really helped our business thrive and really take off from that point.
Yeah, I think the question was around when did your career sort of take a turn, take a change. But wait, I want to back up just for a second. So Kelley, you went to the Mac counter at Nordstrom just like a regular person going into the Mac counter.
Yes.
And Amie, you were working the counter and you'd never met before that moment.
No.
That's correct.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, yes, I was there for Halloween, getting my Halloween makeup done
Nice.
by a colleague of hers and colleague, now client. And we just started chatting and we were talking about the restaurant. And so that was the beginning. And I brought her on at the restaurant and that was great. And we, of course, discovered that we're both from Pennsylvania. We've both been out here for about 30 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. She's from, middle of the
Almost 30
state.
years.
I'm from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So you became friends at the Mac counter. I love that. You just were like, yeah, we like each other. And then you worked together at the restaurant. And then both of you sort of independently of one another got licensed.
Right around the same time. Yeah.
Okay. Did you both leave Machiavelli then at the same time to start real estate?
I think so.
She left a little bit earlier than I did because she was working in the, new development in the condo site sale world. And I was resale. So I was still a little skittish about being commission based only. And so I did try to do both for a little while until, of course, you realize you can't serve two masters.
So true.
And you can only serve one Meister. You can't serve two masters, one Meister.
Quotable quote.
Yep. So I did both for about 2 years and before just jumping off.
And to that point, I'd love to just take a minute because you brought it up. It's a good point. There are people going to be listening to this interview that are like, well, still working my full-time job and I'd love to do real estate, but gosh darn it, I love to get a regular paycheck and I'm scared. So just say a little bit more about why it matters that you jumped.
Well, it matters because you're never going to get a paycheck from real estate unless you're working full time. And you're also going to run yourself into the ground. I mean, can it be done? Sure. There are people who have energy and I was in my mid-30s at the time. Yeah. And I can tell you that the case of adrenal fatigue I had, I'm still fighting from all the energy put into trying to do both. Yeah. And you just can't be there for your clients. You can't be there 24/7.
That fear drives you though too. I mean, when you step off, I mean, you gotta survive. And that really, I mean, I think it encouraged us to go after some of our biggest listings, and to take chances. And I remember we did that in the beginning and it's paid off.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's scary.
You're going to be too tired to kind of put yourself into it 100% if you're working another job. I mean, if you jump off the ledge and you just do it, you're motivated. That fear is going to drive you to actually work harder. And if you're working, you're going to be successful. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yep.
Well, and early on, we both said, we just get up every day and we go to work, whether we have something going on or not. And that's what we did for years. And we put our systems in place. We figured out all the things. And that's what we still do to this day.
That's great. We used to joke that if you want to have food with your meals, right, you got to jump. And that's what's the compelling part is to say, okay, I'm a full-time real estate agent and I don't have any prospects right now, but this is what I'm doing. I'm going to make it work. Yeah. So you also just mentioned something that's a great segue into sort of schedule. So if you would kind of give me, I know every day is different in real estate, which is partly why it's so fun, but what's a typical day in the life of Meister Stewart Partners look like? Could you give me an example?
Oh boy.
Well, there is no same day. It's not Groundhog Day, that's for sure.
Yeah, right.
It's the opposite of Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Except for, for me, and I think it's a little different.
A little different for both
for
of us.
all of us, and which is why we complement each other. Amie's a little more of a morning person. Actually, she's day and she's morning and evening. I'm neither anymore.
Nice.
But waking up, getting the coffee, checking the market, getting through the emails, just depends on, what clients you have where that day. We have at least one solid office day where we're all in the office together. So we have 4 people on our team.
We have one tour day that we do
religiously. On Thursdays, we do the broker's tour for our area.
Nice.
And we rarely miss that unless we're holding a broker's open ourselves.
Yeah.
And other than that, it's, you're running where the where the fires take you.
Yeah. We I think it goes back to what you were saying. I remember you saying this, but I'm going to get this wrong, but we work on our business in the morning and in our business in the afternoon. Like we keep the afternoons pretty loose because inevitably things get plugged in, like an inspection or a scope, or, somebody wants to write an offer, or, we've got a listing presentation coming up. And so things just end up happening when you're constantly following that system. And so
it's true.
It'll seem like when you look ahead that there's not a lot on the calendar, but then it gets filled up pretty quickly.
So true. I want to talk for a minute about your tour day. There's plenty of brokers that are going to be listening to this call that some of them are asking themselves, what's touring, which is scary. So we're going to help them get that down, but also the consistency for which you do it and why. So talk a little bit about what you mean by touring and then why you do it every week.
So there is this thing called the Brokers Open Tour.
Nice.
That is specific to, each area has a different day of the week or time. And for instance, we work in Area 390, which is central Seattle. And it's really important for us to, we bond as a team, we tour together. We have different ways of looking at things. We have different sets of eyes. We have to keep up on the inventory we're selling. So if we have a listing appointment, we're reviewing comps. We need to know what those comps were on the inside. Did it smell like cat pee? Would it have settling? Like, how good were those pictures? How crappy were those pictures? And then, of course, there's the networking with the other agents.
Yeah.
And you build rapport. And it's interesting because even in the beginning, even if you're new and you're not doing a lot of business, but you're out there all the time and your card is laying in every listing, you get a reputation of the perception that you are successful and busy, and other agents will treat you differently.
It's true.
But most really important is always having that perspective of from a listing or a buyer side. How are buyers looking at this? How are the sellers looking at this? It's extremely important. And it's super fun. And we just laugh and... You get to see listings that are like, oh, I can't believe how poorly this is presented, or we need to step up our game. So it's really great.
Kelley and I both live in 390, and inevitably we get questions about inventory just from neighbors or people in the community. And it's just really good to see what's in your neighborhood, regardless of whether or not you've got something coming up or not. We like to stay on top of the inventory. That's how I knew about that house you sold on my block.
That's right. I got a note from her actually. Like, hey, Amy's following me? Oh, no, she lives in the neighborhood. Don't get that excited. Inevitably, you'll have a listing appointment. You'll get a call tomorrow, right? Somebody wants to sell their house. And they've been going to all the open houses and all the things because they're interested in selling. And if you're the one who gets to say, oh my gosh, that one around the corner from you, wasn't that a weird basement? They're automatically, right? There's a respect because you know the inventory, even though you weren't necessarily knowing you were going to list their home, right? So being on top of the inventory is super important. And then the other point that I just want to, I guess, re-emphasize is reputation in our industry. So I remember that the Meister Stewart team won a multiple offer back in the big, huge multiple offer days. There was 48 offers or something. Do you remember this one? It was stupid. It was insane. We worked at the same office then at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a home on the market and we were all kind of upstairs in this area waiting to see if you all won. And you did. And one of the reasons that agent said was that they chose you because some of these offers, when we get to that many ridiculous numbers, there's a few that rise at the top that are pretty similar, right? And it was because of your reputation. They're like, we know Kelley and Amie. We know they have good clients. We know they're going to close. Well, the only way they know them, right, not to mention their success, is because they're out there doing their tours, getting to know brokers. So just want to state again, so important to get out there. Thank you for that little tangent we get to go on there for a minute. Okay, so talk to me about team. You all started off on your own, obviously, the two of you did, and then you decided to partner. And you mentioned at the beginning of the call that was sort of the turning point for you in your career. Tell me more about that.
Well, Kelley proposed to me.
Nice. Right on.
We all know that a partnership is a marriage.
Yes. It's true. Yeah.
And it was.
And I finally said yes. I think it took a little. She had to work on me for a while.
I kept asking for a while.
She had to court you. Yeah. She's like, not yet. Show me what you're worth. Okay.
I know. She was just like, it's only the second date. You're not getting.
That's right.
You're not getting all the way yet. As she said, we had known each other for a long time. And I had had other agents approach me in the past about partnering. And I kind of knew that I was likely going to need to go that way, but I never felt there was a good fit. You know, you just know. It's like whoever you're dating or you're with or whatever. I knew we had shared values and ethics and work ethic. What was most important, we knew that if we tried it out, or at least we even had conversations about it, we knew that if it didn't work out, our friendship would be intact at the end.
Nice. Yep.
We were like, we know we could talk to each other, that our communication was strong enough to be open with each other. It's not working out. Let's wish each other the best and move on. And so we decided to try it for a year after she finally said yes.
You wooed her successfully. Okay.
It was a tough time. I had just had a baby and I went back to work. I joined her at Windermere, for not even a full 3 months. I think it was 8 weeks later.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was intense, but yeah.
Okay. And then you set up your partnership and you've made it. So do you know the stats on teams in our industry? They're pretty dismal. So partly why I wanted to interview, because I like you and I think you're fun and interesting and successful, but partly because you have a success story that a lot of people don't have, that join together in teams and inevitably end up splitting up. And usually it doesn't go well on the split up part, but they don't find it. So you said one thing that I think is crucial, which is shared values and ethics. So you kind of start off on that foundation. But what else do you think contributes to why you've had a successful partnership thus far?
The shared values and the ethics for sure.
Yeah.
But we are very different. We have strengths in all of the fields. I mean, we're obviously successful in our own right alone, but it sort of exponentially grows when you've got, two people with very different ways of handling things and being able to collaborate with each other.
Right.
And in this field, I think it's also really hard to get validation. You might be doing things the right way. You think you're doing it. Am I doing this the right way? And then when you have a partner that you're running everything off of constantly, it's like, oh yeah, that is what you would do. And I know if you would do it, then I'm doing the right thing. And it sounds a little strange, but,
well, and we do go to everything together, listing appointments, and we try to do as much together as possible because of that, there might be something one of us is missing. And
two brains are better. I like it.
We're able to fill the holes of each other. It's a sort of like, we'll wait an appointment and I'll be like, I want to touch on that. Or Amie will jump in and be like, and remember, we also do this.
Yeah.
Sometimes, she's much better with the difficult clients because she is more patient than I am.
What? Kelley, what?
I know. It's a shock. We both have certain things that we prefer doing, that we're both good at doing, but maybe that we prefer doing or it's easier for us to do. And that makes it easy for us to just say, all right, you did that and you did that. And then kind of stay in our lanes a little bit that way. But for the most part, it's a collaboration.
We went through a little bit of a growth trajectory and now we've kind of settled into where we're the most comfortable, which is this team that we have currently. I think we got to a place where we were it was not quite us, and that came and went. And now we've settled into a place in our business where it feels much more right for us. And we've got another colleague, Sinclair.
Who of course.
Who is just amazing and another great fit. I mean, the three of us and our support person, Yoko, who is like the glue for all of us.
I'm going to say something that you may cut out.
I love it. Okay.
But our whole team is Gen X.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was thinking about this the other day, and I think that there is a reason why that works. We all have different gifts. I mean, Amie's definitely Yoko's the glue, but she shows where everything needs to be glued. And I'm just like, tell me what to do. So they're both my boss.
Got it. I like it. Kelley, you need a couple bosses, I think, right? That works out well for you. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I know you all well enough to know, and because we worked at the same firm a while, you really do complement each other, right? Like in scenarios when you're in meetings, Kelley will bring a perspective and then Amie will be right there, chiming in. It's sort of like you're the perfect agent together. Like both of you together make this like ideal agent. Yeah, it's really great.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we joke that we share a brain, so hopefully that it's a bigger brain than what.
We end up wearing the same thing more days than not. Like today is not that day. Well, sweater and t-shirt.
Yeah,
sweater, t-shirt. Yeah, I didn't get the t-shirt memo, but I do have the sweater on. So good. I'm glad I'm in line here. That's great. Pocket Hours is brought to you by Scout Real Estate. Hi, I'm Jennifer Nelson, owner at Scout Real Estate. I started this firm with the vision of doing things differently, with our focus on legendary service for our clients and creating a community of producing agents to spur each other to do higher quality work. If you are interested in learning more about how a small group of like-minded brokers have come together to have some fun while doing a lot of business, reach out to me, 206-227-7966, or email jennifer@scoutrealestate.com. I promise you this, fun is a high priority for me, but so is winning. So if you appreciate those two things, you might be interested in Scout. Looking forward to hearing from you. Okay, so for our listeners, tell us a little bit about when you say turn the corner. So the partnership was part of that. I get it. But what other things did you do you think, in this business that made you more successful? Because you were at a certain income level for a while, independently and maybe together. And then you've turned a corner to be in the top, 5 or 3%? I think it's 3%. I looked it up the other day. Sorry, I should know that. It'll be in the intro, I promise. But that I do separately. But I think you're in the top 3% of brokers in our state. So you're doing a lot of things right. What do you think you're doing that listeners should hear about?
That's a good question. So do your job. You get up and do it every day. You do it ethically. You think win-win. Education, I think, was the best. I mean, systems and having systems in place. So for us, education has always been, back in the days, they used to call it the Ninja program. Windermere, well, it was it was out of a company in Colorado.
Ninja.
Windermere ended up adopting it or buying the program. And it's still, I think, a core tenant, or at least, what we follow, and it's relationship selling.
Yeah.
And so we took a lot of what we learned from that and a lot of other things. You just pick up nuggets along the way. Even at Keller Williams with the team building thing. I mean, that wasn't the right place for us, culturally, but there were a lot of nuggets that we did pick up from there. And we just, we built systems and we stick with it. So for instance, when we're meeting with buyers or sellers, there's always a consultation. There's a plan. There's no random, we're just going to show up and do this. There's a step. We're not taking you to show houses before we have a buyer consult. And, and it's an interview for both of us to see if it's a good fit.
Yep.
Yeah. And I would say 9 out of 10 times we get the client, even if they're interviewing. And the feedback that we get is that they've learned more, even if it's a second or third time, fourth time home buyer who's been through the process, that they've never had that level of information presented to them or felt that they had the support or education. So that's great. And then we just have really great referral service. So I would say at least 75% to 80% of our business is referral business.
Yeah. And we've always approached this from a long-term view. It's always been that way. We both have a service heart. It's always about the client and what's best for them. And I think, we've got people in our sphere that have never even bought and sold, but refer us people because of that, refer people in their lives to us. And that, I think, is really rewarding. And that's what motivates and drives me, at least. I think you too. I don't know if I answered your question, but that was what I was thinking.
Yeah. You get up every day and you just do your job. I mean, whether something closes or not, you get up and you do your job, because it's some days you get paid, some days you don't. You will ultimately get paid. It just all comes out in the wash. Yep. You don't treat people differently. You treat everybody the same. You just keep showing up and good things happen. There are a billion systems that you could write down your goals or do this or do that or, do all the right things. And there are a billion things that work for different people. For me, I just visualize and think about things when I'm in the shower mostly. This one is more like an active, writer about writing it down. Yeah. And it kind of just works out. Everybody's got their system.
For sure. That's true. Couple of things you said just now. And again, a little bit of the podcast is me summarizing what you're saying for the listeners so they can hear it twice, right? We're trying to get it to sink in. One of the things I know about both of you and about actually any successful agent, in my opinion, is that they are always learning and knowing that they have to keep learning to stay good at what they do. And so that you brought up education and that you just keep going for it and that you're willing in any scenario. You know, you brought up working at Keller Williams, and it doesn't matter that it's Keller Williams, it could be anywhere. And that you said that wasn't a cultural fit for you, but what you took away from it. So it's not just saying, well, this doesn't work for us, that's bad. It's saying, well, that doesn't work for us, but what did we get out of it, right? Every situation has an opportunity for learning. So that's super key. And then you also brought up systems, and you mentioned sort of briefly, but it's the ninja selling system out of Fort Collins, Colorado. If you haven't done it, listeners, go to it. It's the best training I've ever had. And I've been doing this 20 years. You all have been in around the same time. So go get that foundation of practices. I just did a class, Map Your Success. Amie was actually in the class. And we talked a lot just about those daily practices that you do that do produce referral business and taking care of your clients. And the last thing you said that I loved is that while we help people buy and sell houses, this is a service industry. And the faster you get that in your brain, the more successful you'll be, right? If you take care of people, treat them with respect, treat everybody the same, Kelley, as you just said, you're going to have people that say, we like that consistency and we want to refer you business. And that's what's happened for you. That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. So talk for a minute about something. We're going to switch gears for a minute about something weird, funny, strange that you've encountered in the real estate world. And while you're thinking, I'll give you an example. So I went to show a condo to this buyer, and inside this condo, a single guy lived there with his cat, who apparently was the love of his life, because there were studio cat pictures with he and his cat, like 10 by 12 and 11 by 14 giant pictures framed with he and his cat on a rock, he and his cat somewhere else, you know, just like, so he loved his cat. And his listing agent, which I would love to have a word with now that I'm a little bit older in the industry, didn't help him recognize that potentially there were too many cat photos in his house for the listing. But it was weird. In fact, to the point where my buyer was like, this is weird. This is a weird place, right? Because it just was a lot of cat pictures. So what have you encountered in your world? Maybe nothing like that, but what's weird that you've encountered?
I'm trying to think of something specific other than someone's personal device left on a bed.
The baby Jesus.
Yeah, that was a good one. We actually ended up selling this one. Our buyers ended up moving forward, but they were very religious, very Catholic sellers. Obviously, there was iconography everywhere and crosses and whatever and prayer benches and blah, blah, blah. But the life-size Jesus in the living room had to be the best.
Wow. Just a daily reminder right in your face. Yeah. Okay.
And so, of course, naturally, even the inspector, we all had to get pictures with Jesus.
Well, not every day you get to meet Jesus life size.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's pretty phenomenal.
But that was
once again, shame on the listing agent, because hey, nothing against Jesus or life size Jesus. Of course not. But everything against, come on. Figure it out. That's going to be a detractor, right? It's going to detract from your listing. Oh my gosh. This business, right? It's new every day. And oh my, what we get to see.
Too many silent talkers drives me batty.
Oh, okay. Another thing. Yeah.
Like, because it's like, don't be a master of the obvious. Okay.
Man,
just don't be.
Captain Obvious.
It's a gas range. You don't need to put a sign up that says it's a gas range.
We see that.
We can see it.
We totally see it. Yeah.
We can see it. Yep. And, you know, when people are walking through, it's like you can't focus on the house when you're like just reading everything.
It's like subtitles for a movie. It's hard. You're like, wait, I can't even watch the movie. I'm just reading.
This isn't a foreign film. It's a house.
I love it. This is not a foreign house. This is right here. Yes. Okay. So listeners, this is particularly Kelley Meister's pet peeve, but it's a great pet peeve to say silent talkers are for things you cannot see. That you cannot see. They are trying to point out great things about the house that are unknown to the naked eye as you walk through. Yes, please use them sparingly and effectively. We love it. Little commercial for silent talkers. Very, very good. Oh, and for those of you that don't know what silent talkers are, they are the notes that you see around houses that are trying to tell you something about a listing that you can't see as you walk through. And some people get really excited about them and just point out everything. So yes, I love it. Side note, side piece of advice. Perfect. Okay, so I want to switch gears for just one more second and say, if you are going to say, I know you're having these conversations with buyers and sellers now, and they inevitably ask the question, or maybe you're at a cocktail party, I don't know, and someone says, all right, Meister Stewart partners, what does the next 12 months look like in our industry? What are you saying?
Well, it depends who's our audience, a buyer or a seller.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go with seller.
Seller.
Yeah.
Or you could go with seller. We could do both. You do seller,
okay.
I'll do buyer.
Perfect.
We have a few of those conversations right now, and I'm advising a couple of them to wait until 2023. I have no crystal ball, but it does seem like, even though we were a little bit optimistic for after Labor Day and what that holds, there was a little bit of uptick for about a week, and then it flattened back out. And I'm really starting to feel, my favorite term lately is that we're going to limp into this last quarter rather than run. So it does feel like we're stagnating now. And that could be more of the global economy, interest rates, inflation, all of those things. But if you are a seller, I mean, obviously we're blessed with a great job economy here, and there is still demand, but buyers are very selective. And so take that extra time to, if you can improve the condition. We have sellers right now working on a checklist of things to do, and they could have hurried up and put it on in October, but we're going to wait.
Yep.
We're going to wait till January. And so I guess for me, I'm saying for a seller, it's probably better to wait because we don't know. We're more hopeful for Q1 of 2023 than we are currently, just given everything that's happening right now. And we're experiencing that with our current listings, things that even flew off the shelf 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. There's not as much activity. There's just a lot of selectivity, where maybe it didn't matter that there wasn't a powder room on the main, but now it matters. We're going to hold out for that. So what do you say?
Well, for our buyers, I mean, we're kind of saying, because buyers have hit the pause button a little bit because there is so much uncertainty. And of course, interest rates have, changed when they were looking even a month ago to now. They're looking at hundreds and hundreds of dollars being added to what they thought their budget was, and that's shrinking. So obviously they're unable to compete. They're a little stressed about, worrying about if things will escalate because they can't. And they're a little exhausted and they just want to kind of wait and see where things go. However, they're going to perhaps miss some really great opportunities because our market in Seattle always, at least as long as I've been in it, seems to go like, it's never really this balanced, really good market. It's either here or here or here or here. And we're going to wait until everyone else is comfortable getting back in.
Yeah.
Maybe it won't escalate as high because rates will be more stabilized. But buyers also have to realize that rates have been artificially low for the past 15 years. And that's a fact.
Yep.
And of course, that led to price appreciation craziness.
Yep.
So at this point, you're marrying the house, not the rate.
Yep.
And you can refi when it will inevitably come down a bit. It's never probably going to be back down to 2% or 3%, nor should it be.
Right.
You marry the house. What are your goals? How long are you going to be there? Don't miss out. Have the opportunity to be a little selective, to see a few more things, to take more than 5 minutes to decide whether you want to offer on something, to keep the protections in the contract that were put in to protect you fairly and reasonably, and don't give up.
Yep.
Let's get out there when no one else is looking. Let's not wait for the next rush because as Amie mentioned, our market is slightly insulated. Our fundamentals are so strong.
Yeah, and unfortunately, neither one of us are very good at saying what's happening in 12 months from now because we just don't.
Well, nobody knows. And I mean, obviously, we've gone through a few years of unprecedented everything.
Everything. Exactly.
And that's kind of coming out. I mean, but people are back out there. People are living again. It's feeling really good. And the open houses are busy again. But I think buyers are just going to be a little choosier, but don't miss this opportunity because you're not going to get a deal. You might have a little more leverage, but you're not going to get a deal out there. You're not. This is Seattle. There really aren't. You're not stealing anything
No,
off the
that
market.
doesn't happen.
It's far from balanced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
right,
anything,
right.
I think we're just going to stagnate or recalibrate and we're not going to see huge appreciation.
Yep. I had one of the interviews, I think it was Julie Beal that was on the show, was talking about how she ran the numbers for someone that bought in February or March, right? And had to compete because of the way the market was just not that many months ago. And that same house that was $1 million, they paid 1.3 for.
Yeah.
And the payment they had at 1.3. And then she took that same house now that they would pay $1 million for, probably just the list price, at the 7% rate. And it was actually cheaper than it was to add $300,000. Now, again, this depends on how much time you're there. There's other factors, but it's just an interesting perspective around people that are saying, well, it's too high now. And you're like, well, it was too high then too, just in a different way, right? I agree with you. Great opportunities for buyers right now. And this time of year too, right? It's sort of sellers. We're getting into the, let's wait for the spring. And in spring, we mean January because spring starts in January in Seattle.
Agreed.
Not the weather, but the market for sure. Yeah, not the weather. Okay, so I'm gonna end with a question that I didn't put on the list for you. So sorry. Gonna throw this one at you. The question is these SOC changes, so selling office commission changes that have come down the pike. I'm teaching a class next week on it, but tell me your perspective on it. So just for the listeners, if you're just kind of coming into this later, the Northwest MLS has made some changes in what they consider to be transparency for the buyer. So as of 2019, we had to tell everybody that the selling office commission is X. We had to reveal that, right, everywhere. And now there's some changes that say this is all negotiable, right? That no longer is the seller have to pay a certain rate, and they can adjust that rate, and then it goes directly to the selling commission, the selling brokerage. It isn't a shared commission from the listing office. So how do you feel like these changes are going to play out?
The changes are there. We have always had these conversations with by using a buyer agency agreement before we sign up with any buyer. So we explain what the rate that we work for, and if the seller is offering a lower rate, what is expected of them. With these new changes, I think it's going to make it a little more complicated. Whenever the rates were published first in 2019, when we had to publish the SOCs, everybody was worried about it. And we did see some builders and some sellers, in the really competitive markets go down to lower percentages or what they offered, but not a lot. It seemed to work out okay. And we've had buyers who understand that they would be expected to bring some cash to the table. And it's the same as if you were hiring a financial advisor. People work on a percentage or a flat rate or whatever. It's, you're dealing with something. People should understand where the money's coming from, and they're hiring you to do something. And we've never been agents that have marketed ourselves as working for free. The seller pays our commission.
Right.
It's definitely going to be a transition, and we're going to have to retool our conversations and our consultations on how to address this.
Yeah. And I think a little bit more on the seller side, just because it is a little bit more broken down and having to kind of go over all the different scenarios, unrepresented buyer, dual agency. Not that we didn't already, but to a degree where you put a price tag on that and explain the pros and cons of why you might want to offer a buyer broker commission.
First of all, I want to say having a buyer's agency agreement is absolutely critical now more than ever, right? So there's a lot of, I think 80% of the brokers out there have never used a buyer's agency, are afraid of it, right? Feel like they should just drive all over town showing properties and then hope these people stick with them. So that's not professional, number one. Number two, it doesn't protect you. It doesn't protect your services and what you offer. It doesn't fully respect your time and your expertise. So do a buyer's agency. If you need more information about that, come to the class next week or get into some class, learn about how to do a buyer's agency. So that's first and foremost. But when it comes down to a multiple offer, which I'm sure we will be in again in our cycles in Seattle, and a seller is looking at 3 or 4 different offers, and this offer says I only have to pay this commission over here, and this one says I have to pay more, right? It's being able to have a really important and educated conversation around the best offer, not just based on a compensation for a broker, right? I think it muddies the water a little bit there, where we have to do more work on that. Yeah, interesting changes in our industry right now. And maybe like the 2019, it won't be as big of a deal as we think it will. I think it's a little bit more profound of changes, but the 2019 publishing of the SOC seemed to kind of come and go pretty quickly in terms of like, okay, that's over. Business as usual, right?
Right.
But yeah, kind of keeping your practices to the point where these sort of changes come and you're prepared because you're already doing all the right things to say we're professionals. Yeah. Awesome. Well, before we finish up, I'd love to hear, is there any advice before we end this call that you would give? There's brand new brokers on this call. There's kind of mid-season brokers. There's people that have been doing this longer than you that are going to be listening. But is there anything you would say before we end the call to just give advice?
Yeah, do your job. Hold open houses for the newbies.
Yeah.
Do your open houses. It's a numbers game.
Yeah.
Do them right. And tour, network, tour, show up. Show up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Persistence, consistency, systems, and, self-care. Schedule in your self-care. You have to, because both of us have been burnt out in this industry, and it's so important to have that hour a day where you're doing your thing, whether it's yoga, which is what I love, or walking, or, whatever. Yeah.
Super
it's really
important. Yay. Hey, Meister Stewart Partners, thank you so much for being on Pocket Hours. I know you're busy and I appreciate your time, and I'm excited to have this. I'll let you know when it's going to be scheduled and live and all the things, but we have over almost 1,000, I think. Shannon will get back on the call soon, but we have over 1,000 downloads so far just on our interviews, and people are listening in. So it's kind of a cool way to get clock hours.
Yeah, kudos to you. It's a great idea.
Thanks.
And I'm excited to listen to more of your other interviews so I can get some more clock hours.
Exactly. And you get to hear from fun people, right? Like they're successful in their own right. And you kind of want to go, how? What did they do?
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for listening in to Pocket Hours. I hope this has been interesting, fun, made you laugh, made you think, spurred you on to do and implement some new things in your business. I appreciate your time and hope this has been a good use of it, period. Now, go be the agent you would hire.